Welcome back. We're discussing the Emergencies Act and the inquiry surrounding that, whether the government was justified in using that tool, if you will, to quash the Freedom Convoy earlier this year in February 2022. Joining me again is Andrew Lawton, author and senior journalist at True North. Andrew, you know, the protests took place in Ottawa. Ottawa's in Ontario. There were border blockades in Windsor. Windsor's in Ontario. Yet the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, has refused to appear. He was invited to, but he's refused to appear in front of the inquiry, in front of the commission. Do you think he should be compelled?
Well, I should say he wasn't just invited, he was subpoenaed and fought that subpoena in court and ended up, for rather bizarre reasons, being successful in that. I think absolutely he should have, forgetting the legal issue of whether he should be compelled to or could have been compelled to, I think just as a matter of moral and political leadership, he should have been there. Not only because this protest affected him in his province, but because he was one of the only, actually the only premier that took in a very enthusiastically supportive view of the Emergencies Act, even as recently as a couple of weeks ago, was saying he stood shoulder to shoulder with Justin Trudeau on the Emergencies Act. So why not answer why it was necessary? Why not answer to the question of why your existing authorities, your existing agencies were unable to deal with this problem in the absence of the Emergencies Act? I think it's quite disgraceful that he is not willing to own up to that under oath.
Well, and to his credit, the Prime Minister is appearing, and he's going to stand to answer questions, and I appreciate that. I can't imagine what he will say to justify his using of such a draconian measure. We shall see. But I agree. Premier Ford should stand and answer to the people. He just faced an election. We deserve to hear that voice. I think so. Now, do you think we can look at both the Prime Minister and Doug Ford. Will this harm Doug Ford's reputation as a premier of the people, you know, as he likes to build himself? Do you think that will impact him and his reputation going forward? Will the people stand for this?
It's interesting. One of the things that I found fascinating from some of the documents that have been tabled, which I wouldn't say were necessarily explosive, but they were illuminating, is how, well, publicly Doug Ford was backing up Justin Trudeau. Privately, Justin Trudeau was speaking very negatively about Doug Ford. At one point, he was calling him a coward. At another point, he was trying to get in a phone call between the two of them, Doug Ford, to start directing police. And Ford was saying, well, no, I can't do that. And, you know, if we want to go in there and kick butt, yeah, it's not my role.
Hmm.
So it was like the federal government expected Doug Ford to be doing a lot more than he was. And that loyalty that seemed to go from the Ontario government to the federal government was not reciprocated.
Oh, very interesting. So, given what you've heard so far, do you think the government will be successful in proving to the public that the Emergencies Act was justified? Because, you know, we could look at things technically, but at the end of the day, you know, there is an ethical, like a moral takeaway from all of this. People want to have trust and faith in the government that they acted properly and they were measured in their
Mhm.
response. Do you think that will be the outcome here?
I think that people need to lower expectations for the reason that the commissioner's report, even if it's very scathing against the federal government, doesn't actually come with any accompanying legal or political remedy. It's incumbent upon members of parliament, it's incumbent upon Canadians to take whatever they learn from this and push for some form of accountability. There's not going to be a scathing indictment that triggers a resignation or an expulsion or some fine of some kind. So I think in that sense, the process is what people should be focused on. It's why I've been covering it. I think sharing clips of what's happening in these proceedings, because at the very least, this is a fact finding operation for Canadians as much as it is for the commission. And I think it's important that Canadians judge for themselves. They don't need a commissioner to tell them what they can see with their own eyes through the course of this testimony.
Well, and you, of course, have helped, I guess you could say, shape the or provide more insight. You published a book earlier this year, a very successfully published book on the Freedom Convoy, Andrew. And you provided a lot of interview information, a lot of your insights in this. You know, you only kind of heard one side of the story, and obviously you're hearing a little bit more from the government. Have you personally gained more information that you found interesting that would color your book a bit more if there was a second edition?
Yeah, so I mean, I've actually, I should say, I've been very grateful that at a few points the commission's lawyers have been citing my book. So it's a bit of an endorsement of the credibility of it that is being used in the official evidence. I've learned some more of the context, and I never pretended that my book was going to have every aspect from every angle covered. I didn't, for example, focus on the law enforcement aspect or the city of Ottawa's aspect. So I've learned a fair bit that really rounds out the other players that weren't part of the scope about whom I was writing initially. So, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to do a second edition, but if I did, there certainly is some more information, definitely.
Okay, well, Andrew, good luck to you as you continue to cover this commission. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.